Home sweet home. Today I'm in the West Midlands to interview one of the UK's top session drummers. From his fledgling years with the prestigious National Youth Jazz Orchestra to performing with an eclectic array of artists such as Amy Winehouse, Will Smith, The Drifters, Vera Lynn, Roy Castle to the Backstreet Boys, to performing at some of the world's most renowned festivals such as Glastonbury and providing entertainment for former US President Bill Clinton, he's been gracing our stages and screens for the best part of 40 years. He's a highly regarded teacher within the world of music education, and as a two-time all-natural bodybuilding champion, he is the go-to guy for anything fitness and health related. He also makes an excellent cup of tea, and he edits a brilliant podcast. My guest today is none other than Darren Ashford, better known to you all as Bubs. My name is Mrs. Ashford, and this is Stage and Screen. Hello, Boobs.
Hello.
And welcome to Stage and Screen.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
How does it feel to be in front of the camera rather than behind it, fiddling and faffing with everything?
Well, it's different, but I've had to do that bit as well. So...
Obviously.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know what he was expecting.
Yeah.
Like, I was supposed to hire people to interview him. What's that about? I've been doing my Italian. Anyway, thank you for welcoming us into your studio space.
That's okay.
Whereabouts in Birmingham are we?
We are in Hockley, which is a stone's throw from the Jewellery Quarter. And this studio is part of a complex. So there are rooms next to this with other bands that rehearse and other musicians and producers and all that type of stuff. So I've got a room here.
Cool.
Amongst all that, so it's cool, yeah.
So it's like a little old school hive of community, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, that's
It is
really
good.
nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so, when you first walked into the space, did you look at it and think exactly, immediately, I mean, like, oh, I want to put this here, that here, that here, or did you have to live with the space a little bit first in order to kind of get everything set up?
Well, I suppose... because of my space here is like 4 meters by 4 meters. It's not massive, but it's enough for me to get the drums in and do what I had in my mind to do, which was have a space, one, where I could play, record, film, and I've got a desk, you can't see it, but behind the cameras here, there's a desk, and I can mix there and do all that sort of stuff as well. So a lot of the logistics in this room were governed by what else was going on in the other parts of the room. So I had a pretty good idea about how it was going to go. Because some people, like, the drums are here set up against the wall here, which is not... If you were doing loads of recording, you probably wouldn't do that. But because I was using it as a place to film as well, it was kind of the most logical way of doing it. So it suggested a way of doing it almost immediately. So, yeah, I didn't have to think too much about it, yeah.
And I guess because you do online lessons and everything, being crammed up in a corner probably wouldn't be so good, because I can see that you've got, like, cameras set up for your international students, and I guess the sight lines are probably just better for them.
Yeah, and it was also just like, because there's no windows in here, so it was all about having to do the lighting as well. So, yeah, it was all about sight lines and how could I put other cameras and have as much of it set up so I didn't have to keep coming in and setting things up all the time. So it was as much, sort of plug and play as I could make it, really.
Yeah. And that's a big thing for drummers, isn't it? Because there's a lot of lugging around of stuff.
There is.
I guess, like, doing a gig is almost like a mini workout, isn't it?
It
Because
is.
you've got all your hardware and your cymbals and the drums themselves. Like, that stuff's heavy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. I think that's one of the things that... depending on what music you play and what sort of drummer you are, that can be the hardest physically, the hardest thing about the gig is just getting it in and out of venues and stuff like that. It can be really pretty tiring. So, plus driving back, so it's quite a thing.
Yeah. But it helps that you got the guns.
The guns.
that helps, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Well, that's although I didn't start training back in the day, because of that, it did help me massively when I started doing more and more gigs, when I learned to drive and everything. So it was one of those things, they kind of dovetail together, and it definitely helped me have some kind of stamina on gigs and that type of thing, because yeah, they can be physically quite demanding, you know, especially if you've got to go up 4 floors to a venue or something. So it can be a nightmare, you know.
Yeah, I mean, just the strength that you get from training, and I guess just being being supple,
Yeah.
and moving around. You know, like you said,
Yeah.
it's that thing about sitting around in the car. I don't know, going up north to do a gig, or down south because we're in the Midlands
Yeah.
to do a gig or something, and static, and then a load of movement.
Yeah,
like that's
yeah.
not cute, is it? So I guess if your
No.
body's used to, you know, physical activity, lifting weights, running, and doing all calisthenics and stuff, or whatever that plyometrics. Some training words I don't know about. Then that's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, for
It's
sure.
really
Yeah.
good.
I suppose in some ways you can, or the way that I practiced the drums as well, in some aspects of it, was the same, in as much that you would do the training and sometimes you'd go past the level by which you need the training for, so that when you did the event, I suppose like Olympic athletes, I guess they would do a similar type of thing, is to train past where they need to go so that they can, you know, be comfortable in the zone of performing, you know, where they need to, I suppose.
Yeah, but you were talking about stamina before. Have you ever come across anyone who's just run out of puff? Like, like mid gig, like I can't play
Well,
anymore.
Here's the story. So when I must have been about 23, 24, and I just got a gig, my first kind of professional gig that was like really full time. And I've been doing it for about maybe 6 months to a year or something like that. And it was always on the road, busy, busy, busy. And I had another gig come in and I thought, oh, I really fancy doing this other gig. And I went to the MD and I said, look, I've got this other gig come in. Can I dip out 1 or 2 of the shows? And that started a whole process of getting other drummers into that particular gig and covering it for me. And one bit of feedback that I used to get is because the shows were long as well. They were about 2 hours long, and we were in those days we were dressed in dinner jackets in DJs,
Boiling.
and no LED lights. It was absolutely boiling, you know.
Yeah.
And the feedback that I got about the depth drummers that came in is by the time they got to about an hour and a half, they just ran out of steam.
All right.
And either, you know, they struggled to, I mean, this is not necessarily down to the stamina, but either they started to lose tempo or they just were getting tired, you know. And it was a kind of a wake-up call to me that the things that I was doing in and around that, you know, with the physical, the working out and all that type of stuff was really, really helping me, because other people were really struggling, you know.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Because it's a funny thing, because being on stage, it takes a lot of energy, not just kind of like physically, but psychologically as well, you know. And you think, yeah, everything that you were doing with your training has helped you out.
Yeah.
So you were thinking, probably, well done me.
Yeah. Well, it was just a confirmation that it was doing something over, because I didn't start it because I just wanted to get into training. I started because it was related to my instrument, and I was studying like body movement and all that type of stuff at the time. And yeah, it was just confirmation that it's like, actually, this is helping other things other than the thing you started it for, you know, which stood me in good stead for the next, I don't know, 15, 20 years or so, you know.
So what kind of physical things were you doing? Because I know that you're a 2-time all-natural bodybuilding champion, which he doesn't like to tell anyone about. So I like to just bring it up in every conversation.
My agent.
So you're a 2-time champion. It's all natural as well. So no steroids, none of that business.
That's right,
you know. And I know the first time that you won, it was just straightforward. You know, there's a lot involved in doing it. It's really easy. Yeah. The second time you won, there was a bit of controversy, wasn't there?
I was training at a gym in Aylesbury at the time. The gym was called Bodyflex, and Tony Montalbano was the owner. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Tony.
And you know, he was well into competitions and competing in bodybuilding. It was all he did all the natural competitions, so it was you know, no steroids, no growth hormone, none of that type of stuff, and it was all tested and everything.
But you couldn't take any of that stuff anyway because of your heart condition.
Yeah, so I've got a heart murmur.
Yeah.
So all of those type of things, not that I would have done it anyway, because it kind of went against everything that I kind of thought about with fitness anyway. you know, there's certain things that I have to kind of look out for in what I'm doing, and to make sure that I don't put myself at risk. And those things would definitely have done that. Anyway, so I was training there for a number of years, and he would always pester me and say, "It does. When are you going to compete? Are you going to go? I'll get the forms for you if you like, you know, the whole thing, right?" And I said, "Tony, I'm really not interested. I'm just not." And this went on for years. And like every day that I was training, he was like, "So when are you going to?" To the point where it got so bad, it was like, "All right, I'll do it. I'll do it." But I'm so glad that I did try it out, because I met so many amazing people that knew way more about, you know, the body and health and nutrition than I did, that I learnt so much more by actually putting myself out there and doing that. And that's something that I try to do in lots of different areas, and especially about music and playing the drums as well. It taught me a lot there. So he said, "Okay, well, we're going to put you in for this competition." So I said, "Oh, okay then," you know, so entered it. And what you had to do then was go for the first competition, which was a qualifier. And it was actually in Holmfirth.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah,
Holmfirth.
yeah.
Last Day of the Summer Wine.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a favourite programme. I'm actually 80 years old.
Yeah. So I did the qualifier in Holmfirth, and I came second in that. And the guy who won, whose name escapes me at the minute, when we went through to the final, and I think the final was like a month later, month and a half, something like that later, turned up at the final competition, and he was nowhere to be seen. I was like, "Oh, where's such and such?" Oh, he got tested and he failed the test. So he was using, I don't know, steroids or growth hormone or whatever it was. So it was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So anyway, did the final, and I won the final. Okay, so I went through this two steps. Some people do like multiple qualifiers and then end up at the final and do things like that to get more practice and all that. But that was that. And then the next year I did it, but the difference in the second year was I was under my weight category, whereas in the first time I was a novice.
Right.
So the first year I second the qualifier, won the final, and in the second year I was in my weight category. Of course, some of these guys are so experienced, but I came second in that one as well. So it was really good, and I met some amazing people in and around that kind of community who really helped me a lot. It was good. Yeah.
And I hear your signature move was what, the splits?
Yeah.
In those tiny pants.
Yeah.
Is that what got you the win?
Well, of course.
So tell us about some of the moves that you have to do. I know there's most muscular.
Yes.
What else is there?
So what they're trying to do is they're trying to look at the proportions of your frame, effectively. You know, everybody's genetically going to be very different. Like, some people have got longer legs, longer torsos, broader shoulders, whatever the thing is. But what they're trying to do is to look at, in terms of bodybuilding and building a structure of your musculature, is that are you balanced? Have you only worked up on your upper half and not ignored the legs and all that type of stuff? So when they do the judging, they go through some poses where they're trying to assess the different body parts. So you have things like, they do like a side chest. So you kind of, if you imagine the judges are over here, you turn side to the judges like that, and they can see your bicep development, your chest, and your abdominals, and your hamstrings and stuff like that, and calves and everything. And then there will be other poses where they are looking at the width of your back, or the density of the muscle bellies in parts of the body. So all of these poses are there so they can compare and contrast all of the competitors, basically. You know. So and then once they've done all the compulsory poses, as they're known, you basically have a routine that you will do to music. You know, the classic thing, I think it was on, was it New Faces or something? And one guy went on there and he kind of jiggled his pecs to the music and all that, and it was like an overnight sensation. And so you have to do a routine to music, which was the one part of the show which was super creative. Some guys got really good at, like, you know, and this is, well, in some ways the crossover for music as well, creating their own tracks, mixing things together, putting sound effects on them so that when they hit a certain pose, it had some support with the audio and everything. And it was amazing what some of the guys. I remember there was one guy, although I didn't see him. Tony showed me a video of him, and he was a dancer. But he'd obviously got into the bodybuilding, but his moves were kind of like, when they do kind of like the worm and they do the robotics and all that, he kind of put all that type of stuff within the routine, and it was absolutely, well, it was incredible. It was like, well, I just can't compete with that. But the idea is that you don't. The idea is that you just bring whatever your thing is to the routine. So at the time I was doing loads of martial arts, and I've been doing it for a number of years by that time. And when I was training in Oxford, one of the coaches said to me, we were training together, and he said, maybe we should work on our flexibility. And I said, okay, well, let's set ourselves a goal of doing the splits by like Christmas or whatever it was. And I said, okay, let's do that. So I researched, and this is before the internet, so I went and bought some books on stretching and some martial arts stretching and dynamic stretching. And we started building these little stretching routines. After about 3 months, I was able to do the splits, but I was a little bit unique because I could hit what they call box splits, which is where effectively the legs go out equally sideways. Some people do the like a straddle split, if you like, which is the kind of one leg is one way, one leg is the other way. So, but the box one is traditionally harder, but it's just because I've got good flexibility in my hips that I was able to hit it. So that was one of the things that really helped me when I did do the competition, is to hit this pose. My final thing was into the splits and then doing the double bicep pose, So, and that was like I put a sound effect on it of an explosion and all that type of stuff, and it was cool,
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to grab people, haven't you? It's all a performance, and,
Yeah.
and that links into playing the drums. It links into everything that you do. It's interesting because it's funny because sometimes you talk to people, or people see that people are in shape like you are, and I just happen to fall into shape, just genetics. I do not go to the gym. And people automatically think, you got too much time on your hands, or they think, you must be on gear. It's that negative thing, where people think, well, you can't look that good because da, 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 da. But actually, there's a commitment within the bodybuilding you're doing, the music that you're doing, and the martial arts as well, because you were training with the British squad, weren't you?
At one point, yeah.
At one point. And there's a dedication, a commitment, I think, that sometimes people psychologically wouldn't put in themselves, so then they put it onto you. So they're projecting their kind of like low standards onto you. So you must be on gear. You must, have loads of time on your hands. It's like, how does that kind of make you feel when you know the hours and the pain, especially on leg day, or especially like when you've got to do a gig and it's absolutely tipping it down and people don't realise the hours that you've put into becoming this really good drummer, how does it kind of make you feel in that instance? It's
interesting because I suppose what happened with me was that I started playing drums when I was quite young. And then over the course of, because I had the benefit of going to some brilliant teachers, when I went to sort of study with these teachers, there was a certain element of commitment that you had to have in order for you to progress, it wasn't a race, but as quickly as you could. So there was a whole thing about, okay, you need to do this amount of practice, you need to do this, and these are the exercises that you need to do. And when I was going through that with playing the drums, I suppose that consistency that I was building into, I just then started to apply to my fitness and training. And it was the same with the martial arts. You go to your class twice a week, and you go through the forms and do the techniques and some sparring and all that type of stuff. But it was like, okay, is there anything I can do on the days when we don't go there that's going to help me, and all that type of thing. So when people see something like, because I've had this for years and years, I would go anywhere. I wouldn't necessarily be on a gig. I might be going shopping. I might be doing this or that, the other. And I always get, you work out. What do you do? What's your diet like? And like it was almost on a daily basis. I'd get all these questions.
Well, it still happens now, though,
Well, it does happen now, yeah. So when they would ask questions about that, I kind of had to, in some ways, frame it in a way without kind of being being rude is like simplifying it a little bit, because if anybody was going to do anything or change any part of their lifestyle to accommodate this kind of consistency, there's no way that they could do what I was doing at that particular point. And the usual one was, oh, I bet you train 4 hours a day or something like that. It's like, no. So you have to kind of say, oh yeah, I've been training for this long, and the usual response is, well, I used to look like you. And I was like, oh, okay. Right.
You did, yeah.
So,
in opposite world.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so it was always a baffling thing that I knew that having, you know, especially later on, having taught people as well, it's like the level of commitment and the level of consistency that they would have and dedication to the training would reflect in the amount of results that they would get. So sometimes I would get, oh, you're really vain, you know, and it's just like, oh. And I'm just out shopping or something, you know, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
So, and it was, you know, it's clearly, like you said, a projection of what either they didn't like it or they've got some kind of insecurity about it.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
It was not that I was that I was annoyed by it or embarrassed by it. It was like, you know, classically, the type of person I am. I'd be like, yeah, if I do this, and you know, if you want to do this, you can do that, and to help them, you know, if they were interested in it. But it was interesting that most of the people wouldn't follow it up really. But that's fine, you know. It's up to them to kind of engage with it however they want. Yeah. But I didn't feel a way about it other than the fact that I started to learn where they were coming from. And I was going to say where they were coming from quicker. I could pick it up quite quickly.
Yeah.
And actually, that's something that teaching. You know, has come with the amount of teaching that I do, is that I can diagnose things really quickly. It's like, oh, there's a technique thing here, or there's a balance issue there, and it's, you know, just like you when you do your vocal coaching, you can kind of listen to somebody or see or watch somebody, and like, okay, I can see what you need as the next stepping stone. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much for watching and listening. However you're consuming this podcast, please consider subscribing, liking and leaving us a 5-star review, as this helps us to reach a wider audience. Your support is very much appreciated. Now back to the show.
It's a funny one now, isn't it? Because we live in this kind of like, oh, the next hack for, you know, and all of that stuff. Have you seen, like, because you're talking about your teaching and everything, have you seen the way that students approach their lessons and the way they approach becoming a good drummer or a pro drummer? Have the reasons behind them wanting to play the drums changed? As in, like, you know, because sometimes some people, I just want to be famous, or I just want to play, or some people want to inspire people, you know, or it's just something else to do. Have the reasons changed, and have the way they've approached their lessons changed over the years?
Oh, that's a very good question. I don't think the reasons why they play has changed. I don't think that's a thing. I think a lot of the kids that I teach at the music colleges and stuff like that, and or even privately, is that they've had some connection with it at some point. There's something's grabbed their attention. Back in the day, it was drummers that, you know, that are fairly famous now. They pretty much, most of them will have seen the Beatles on the is it the Ed Sullivan Show in America?
Oh, right.
And that was like the ignition point that made them go, oh, I want to do that. I don't think that's really any different than the reasons they get into. I understand where you're kind of going with that, because of the social media thing. I want to be famous rather than I want to play the drums. Yeah, I think sometimes what happens is that there's always like an attrition rate of people who start those things, and the ones that just want to play tend to have a little bit more staying power than the ones where I want to be famous or I want to earn loads of, or, you know, playing at Wembley is a great, you know, is a great aspirational thing to have. But yeah, you've got to really enjoy it and love it to kind of spend or dedicate a lot of time to getting better at it, you know. And some people just do it naturally. They just want to jump on the drums at every opportunity. And others are like, oh, you know, case in point, I was teaching a couple of years ago here in Birmingham, and I was a student, was in the first year, and it's very early days, and it's some basic technique stuff and all this type of thing. And I said, oh, what does your practice routine look like at the minute? And they said, oh, well, I'm probably doing maybe about 25 minutes. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, 25 minutes a day. And they went, no, 25 minutes a week.
A week?
And it was like,
wow.
From where I was coming from, that was like 25 minutes a week.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have even entertained that. And when I was coming up, there was stories of very famous drummers practicing for 8 hours a day, and it became like a marker by which you would judge your practice time. But knowing later on that it's like, that's not going to work for everybody.
No.
And as long as you've got good practice habits, you can get loads done in a lot less time,
Yeah, for sure. But playing the drums, it's really difficult. Like, you've got to, have all 4 limbs doing different stuff at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, I've got a stone groove, but my left foot is not involved in that stone groove, at all. Hands and right foot, very much, and I've got 0 finesse as well. So it's that thing about splitting your brain, and poor drummers as well. Poor drummers. They're always like, oh, do you know how many drummers does it take to change a light bulb or something?
The drummer jokes.
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? Because actually, it's complicated as hell, isn't it?
It can be, yeah.
In the beginning, I suppose.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I suppose when you first start playing, these days it's a bit different because there's so much information available at our fingertips where you can just find a video on YouTube and there's somebody demonstrate, or even just on Shorts or something, on social media, and you can pick up something very, very quickly because it's relatively simple and it will kind of get you going. But back when I was coming up, you had to kind of go to a teacher because there was no, unless you caught something on the 3 or 4 channels on the TV, there was no way of doing it. So you had to either go and see people play live, which was obviously brilliant, or you had to have lessons, and if you didn't read music, you couldn't really access some of the books because you couldn't understand the notation. So it was a bit more hard to come by. But again, these days, it's a little bit more, to kind of get up to a certain level, it's a little bit easier in many ways. That said, I've seen some really, as with all these things, bad habits of people who've only learned online. Conversely, I've seen some people who've only learned online and they're brilliant. So it's down to the individual a lot of the time, But yeah, just going back to how complicated the drums are, I think there's that sort of a certain amount of manual dexterity and understanding how you're firing the limbs. A lot of it is like interdependence, which is where all the 4 limbs are somewhat linked rather than 4 separate things that all got their own little brain. And they're all off doing their own little thing. There's some kind of link between them rhythmically, generally, and it's just about mapping that across. But I found that when I learnt to drive, and I'd been playing the drums for 7 years or whatever it was by the time I got there, that certain things were easier because I'd already been, working on the 4-way coordination type of thing. So when it came to drive, it was quite straightforward to learn it. So there is this element of that, and if you're not good with that kind of coordination, you might struggle.
But do you think drummers have got like a certain kind of mindset? And that you're unified by the amount of gear, you're the first ones there and the last ones out. There's that unity going on. But also, do you think, because you often meet drummers who are like, oh yeah, I built my own extension, and then and like, oh yeah, I also just do architecture on the side. There's like almost kind of like statistical, kind of numerical, kind of breaking analytical kind of mind, isn't there, going on with drummers? And it's like that drummer love thing that brings you all together. Do you think there's a mindset kind of within the drumming community?
I think to some level there is. I think maybe it's because, we've all got this kind of grid by which we're playing at. We're playing 8th notes here, and here's the pulse, and so we're kind of, there is a somewhat of a connection with, like, I was going to say maths, not in the strictest way, but there's kind of a grid system that if you start getting your head around there, which is why music can be so helpful for everybody about, just in general, and, when we talk about, or when we hear on the news, oh, they've cut music, they've cut the arts, they've cut this, and it's
Ridiculous.
like, oh, I'm just going, oh, why are you doing that? And the studies are out there to support the learning through music helps people in a variety of different ways. But the connection through drummers, it's more than just the musical kind of mechanics, if you like. Yeah, I don't know what it is, because bass players are almost a type, aren't they? They're a bit more laid back, a bit more relaxed, you know. Singers and guitarists, drummers. Drummers have got a great community, and they always have for years and years, you know. They're willing to help each other, and, you know, I don't know what it is, but it's just a great community that you just don't get with other instruments. So,
yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Sometimes I look over at the drums and I'm like, oh, I want to be a drummer.
Yeah.
I'm stuck with the singers. But sure, I just think it's lovely. Also, you guys have so much stuff to talk about. There's just like gear just all over the gas. So now, first of all, this is your second drum kit, because you've got your main sparkly blue drum kit, haven't you?
Yeah, So this is my the kit that I just leave in the studio, just so that I don't have to keep running around like a lunatic, setting stuff up more than I have to. So I keep one set for all my gigs, and this just stays in here. So yeah.
And I'm just going to quiz you about the sections. So obviously, you know, when you're writing songs, every lyric and every bit of melody is there for a reason, right?
Right.
So now on the drum kit, everything. Which bits are optional and which bits do you probably have to have, or you're not really a drummer?
The drum set is relatively modern compared to other instruments. So when it first started to come together, so to speak, because it was the way that we would normally associate drums with, you know, like in classical music, for example, in the orchestra, the bass drum is separate from the snare drum, and the timpanis and the cymbals are separate here. Here it was all put together, you know, so one person could play it. The thing about the drum set now is, if you can go to social media and see loads of different videos and probably not see the same drum set, but you will see commonalities amongst them. So, for example, we've got the bass drum on the floor here. This is called the snare drum, and these are tom-toms. Now, some drummers these days will have hybrid setups that might include, like, I don't know, electronic pads, or no tom-toms, or 3 snare drums, or multiple bass drums, and a drum set that might be like just 2 drums all the way up to, like, I don't know, 35 drums or something like that. So there's so much variation within that. But when you think about a drum kit, generally you think back to, maybe if we just look at like back in the I guess the 40s and 50s, if we think about like jazz and big band music and stuff like that, it'll tend to have 2 toms, a bass drum and a snare drum, and then a variety of different cymbals, really. And the cymbals, that, you know, there's variety in amongst those as well. On a modern drum set, a traditional set, you would have a pair of hi-hats. In this case, I've got 2 crash cymbals and a ride cymbal, and they perform certain functions within the music. But you can get lots of other variations, little splash cymbals that are only about this big, china cymbals with holes in them, all sorts of different stacked cymbals where they're layered on top of each other, loads of different things that all create different textures and sounds. There's always this kind of evolution of the drum set, both in the playing and in the setups. But this is a very, very traditional kit that you would find, yeah.
It's a funny one though, isn't it? Because I saw a thing online the other day. This guy got hired to do a session, right? But the person who hired him had got AI to make the drums.
Right.
Then he asked this guy to play the drums live, but do it like the AI.
Okay.
So he wanted everything to sound exactly like the AI, but for a human to play it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then when this guy sent him the session stuff, it sounded amazing because he put a recording of it online and everything. It sounded amazing. And the guy wasn't happy. He was like, well, can't you just make it sound more like the AI? And it's like, well, if that's what you want, leave me alone. But the thing is, it's that thing of things moving on. And do you think AI is gonna, because like in the 80s and stuff, you know, when all the electronics came out, it was like drummers just tumbleweed.
The drum machine scare, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that could happen because of AI? What do you think is going to happen?
I think there's a certain element of commercial music where AI will replace musicians. You know, because if somebody wants a jingle for cornflakes or something, they can type a few sentences into a computer, and then within, I don't know, a very short period of time, they can have the finished product and it's done. So of course they're going to do that. It's a shame because the experience that you get, and going back a number of years when sessions or recording sessions tended to be all in person. You'd be in the room with everybody else or in the studio with everybody else making music in real time. So everybody was listening and reacting off each other, which was the whole human experience, you know. I just hope that, you know, in sometime in the future that there's going to be, as there always is, a realisation that there's something about the human experience which transcends, you know, a computer doing it. Because it's only going to be, you know, at the limit of how much it can research, because you have to put the information in. So what it's doing is going out and finding all that information. So it's referencing humans anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it will never obviously replace live gigs. I mean, it would be a bit sad, wouldn't it, going to see a computer-generated music played at a venue by a computer, and all the humans are there bopping around. And I'm not saying that it probably doesn't produce some good stuff, but even so, it's like, can we not just keep it all within the realms of humanity and let the people do the art?
I mean, they are doing that with vocals already. People are recording the AI vocals and then getting people to come and perform it live. But the thing is, it's the music and the arts are supposed to bring people together and make people think and feel things that they never felt before. And sometimes, like with vocalists, you can tell who it is. That's definitely Whitney Houston, you know, or whoever. That's definitely Tom Jones. And like with drummers, it's like, that's Bernard Purdie. There's the Bernie Shuffle. That's definitely Steve Gadd. Like, you guys know this stuff. Or that's, I don't know, definitely Keith Moon or something, you know. Yeah. And I think that everyone's little feel and their little lilts and nuances. Like when I was doing the drums, it was like, Misha, you swing everything. And I'm like, do I? I was like, yeah, man, just got the natural swing. But like, but that was my feel. And it's like, if I were any good at the drums, it'd be like, yeah, Misha's got this like kind of natural kind of swinging thing going on. But if everything's perfectly robotically, I mean, I'm sure AI can put a little swing on something, but it's that you remember, and when you remember these musical moments in your life, and when you know that a real person played that and made you feel that, it's something completely different, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure, yeah. Especially with what you're saying about creativity and how people are, you know, very different from each other, just in lots of aspects, but in creativity with music, that's why we love all the players that we do, and we have our favourites and all that, is because they're so much different. They're not always dramatically different than everybody else, but they are different, and there's something about them, whether it's about how they sing or their range or what they do, or, you know, that just makes it something that you can connect with, you know. And I think we have to understand that the AI is only referencing from
humans.
Referencing humans, and it's like, that's not necessarily being creative, you know. I was listening to one thing on the AI debate, you know, and it was saying, oh, well, even they are going to become creative, and it's like, well, but it's just a program.
Well, this is the thing, And the thing is, like, when you're sitting here with these drums, this is your voice, and you can tune every drum to whatever pitch that you want it to be tuned to. So that is your vocal kind of pitching,
yeah, for sure,
isn't it? And that's how you communicate with your audiences and go, oh, we booked Darren because his sound is fat or whatever it is, or, you know, he makes a nice cup of tea and
exactly,
whatever else. But this is not that you're defined by the drums, but you've got your identity through the instrument. You know, it's not like you buy a drum kit and everybody has it tuned exactly the same and everybody has the same cymbals and blah 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 blah. You know, it's a beautiful thing, just music.
And I think the drums particularly is there's a lot of scope for creativity, even without, if we take the playing out of it and just have the setups, there's so many variations and things that you can do with it that, you know, even your choice, like, as you said, to tune it differently or to have 15 tom-toms or to do whatever is your statement of your musicality, you know. And I just hope that people really realise that humanness that comes out in music is something to be valued. You know, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because we're all kind of on the cusp of this AI thing, and we're just not knowing where it's really going. We know the power of it and where it is useful in terms of shortcutting production times and for specific, you know, outcomes in terms of, I want a jingle to sell this, it's got to be 30 seconds long, it's got to be in this style, and I want a female vocal on it, go. These are the lyrics, and it can do it. And but, you know, it's kind of like music by numbers, isn't it, in many ways like that. But I just hope that we all support the arts and support live music as much as possible, because there's nothing, like our friend said, you know, when you go to see a gig, you will never see that gig again. What those people played will never be recreated in exactly the same way every single time. So that's the uniqueness of that experience, is something that everybody should kind of celebrate.
Absolutely, yeah. Thinking about developments in the industry and stuff. Back in the day, right, you could just be a drummer, right? And now these days, is there kind of pressure to come with the electronics and the mixers and MD it and do all of that stuff as well, have drum pads and things? Can you just come up and just show up and just, I'm just a drummer? Or have you got to be technologically minded these days? Like you are, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, I've seen it from when I first started playing, and that I only played the drums, you know, even to the point where when I first started, you know, when I was turning professional, you know, so I was like 17, 18 when I was just full-time. I was doing it full-time. I wasn't earning a great deal of money or doing loads and loads of gigs, but I was practicing loads and just getting out there and doing it. I was only playing the drums. So my focus in terms of what I was practicing and what I was learning was all about just playing the drums. And then over the course of, I don't know, maybe the next, up till now, I'm still learning about all this other stuff that integrates into performance. So whether it's audio, you know, whether that's learning about how to use digital mixers and microphones and mic technique and in-ear monitors and, you know, playing to clicks and all that type of stuff. It's just things that these days it's commonplace. I would say that 95% of all the gigs that I do now, they're all to click or have some kind of, you know, backing tracks or something associated with them, which is a lot, you know. And it's just another skill that drummers have had to absorb. I mean, I could have gone on and just played the drums only and not bothered to learn it, but as the evolution of anything, people start to kind of use other things, like in the same way that guitarists, you know, they came out with effects pedals and amps and that do this and do that. It's like for years the drums were, you just set the drums up and you just play the drums, you know, and then when it came to a point, and one of my kind of heroes when I was coming up, and still is really, Dave Weckl, he used to have like 2 refrigerator-sized racks next to his drums with processing units. I mean, that was a reflection of the technology at the time because it was so massive. But he would go the extra mile to tune his drums a certain way, to put the mics on a certain way, to mix it so that live it was like, it sounded like a record, you know, as opposed to that thing where you'd go and see something in a live venue back in the day and probably the drums weren't amplified, but the guitar and the bass was. And so, you know, that kind of evolution of understanding about EQ and compression and gates and all those types of things, for me was a natural process of being frustrated with, on one of the gigs I did, with bad sound.
Right.
You know, I was just so fed up of having good sound one day, really terrible to no monitoring the next day, and it would just go up and down all the time. And then when I got hip to players like Dave Weckl who were taking that on board and trying to control that, I was like, okay, I need to jump on that bandwagon and see if I can get that. Because if I'm happy and I can hear everybody, and I've got control over my own environment, and I just enjoy it more. Whereas if you're always struggling to hear, I can't quite hear what, you're never going to be, the music is not going to be as reactive and as going to be as well informed. Your decisions aren't as well informed if you just can't hear anything, you know. So that was kind of the learning curve that I went on. So these days, it's not to say that people can't play the drums, but if you've got a broader skill set and a more rounded kind of area of expertise in different things that are associated with playing the drums, you're definitely going to be more useful and more, in many ways, more employable. Because there's been times when I've been on a gig, and I remember I did this one gig, and the sound engineer had just gone on holiday, and in this venue, and they said, "Oh no, we've got," and nobody. It was a digital desk, and nobody knew how to use it, and we had like an hour. I was like, "Okay, well." Plugging everything in and, you know, doing all this, jumped out the front, got a really rough mix, and then we just played with the rough mix. But if that had not happened, probably the gig wouldn't have even happened, because nobody could hear the singer. It's like, well, this is not going to happen if you can't hear the singer.
Well, this is it. What's a gig without a singer?
So the evolution of what a drummer these days is and what he has to know, it seems to be the skill set needs to be broadened these days just to make it yourself more employable.